again to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, the podcast where the love for the high iron meets the precision of the scale model. Whether you're tracking the latest Class 1 freight movements or perfecting the scenery on your home layout, we're here to celebrate the history and hobby of railroading. Climb aboard and settle in as we clear the signals for another journey through the world of trains. Hello and welcome to the season premiere of the Iron City Roundhouse Report Season 2. This is the first podcast, obviously, of our second season, and we are really glad to be back after we took roughly about a month break, and we're hoping that all of our devoted listeners, who we appreciate so much, are ready for a second season, and this is going to be a full season. We started mid-year last year. I believe it was in May we started, so we're starting off first thing fresh in the new year, January, and we're really excited for the show we have tonight for the Season 2 premiere of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Just like last season, my good buddy, Pat Moore, is here with me. So, Pat, are you as excited as I am about Season 2?
Brad, I can't believe we made it through a Season 1. So this is really good.
Seriously.
Season 2, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. We've got a lot of ideas. We've already got some guests lined up. We have people telling us, hey, we want to hear about operations, signaling, nuts and bolts of the hobby, you name it. They want to hear about it. They want us to do a lot more interviews with folks that have layouts and hear about these layouts. So hopefully we're going to be able to do all that. Plus the Iron City page, Brad, is booming. Business is great. We have a lot of new members, and we've got some fantastic showcases that are going to happen this year. And Brad, we have Iron City clinics are coming back. So looking forward to the podcast and the page growing together in Season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some pretty cool stuff planned. The rumor has it that there's a combined ops session in the works in the very near future that's going to drop at some point. Won't give any more details out on that. There's a couple pretty cool surprises contained within that combined ops session video, remote ops, whatever you want to call it. So we'll be doing that. Just lots of cool stuff. We have a very special guest tonight for DJ from DJ's Trains. If you're not familiar with him, and I think many, many people are, but DJ is a YouTuber with, I believe, over 71,000 and some YouTube subscribers. He's got a really cool YouTube channel dedicated to model railroading. He is an expert scratch builder of structures, mainly in N scale. In fact, I don't know if he models in another scale or not, but we know he does a lot of nice N scale stuff. And I believe, Pat, we both own buildings that were built by DJ. And to top that all off, he's also a CSX engineer. So multifaceted, very interesting guy. But before we get to DJ, and I'm sure everybody's really looking forward to hearing from him, we have our first Roundhouse Report of 2026, Pat. So do you want to lead that off?
Sure, I'll get started this evening. Brad, my first one for the Roundhouse Report for 2026 is our post on the Cayman Science Center. If anybody from the Pittsburgh area or ever traveled through, that used to be called the Carnegie Science Center. The Cayman family came in and basically wrote a check saying, we want this science center to be open for 100 more years. And so they changed the name, which I understand. It was a great gift, and it's going to make the science center such a great place to visit in the Pittsburgh area. If you're from the Northeast, if you're from, Buffalo, north of us, if you're from Cleveland or Columbus, down in West Virginia, Morgantown area, it's not even a day's drive even from Philadelphia. You come down and see us at the event coming up next weekend, and that's called Locomotion Weekend. And that is a great setup where they have a big conference room on the top floor of the Science Center and multiple train groups from the regional area from Pittsburgh set up. So there'll be N scale, there'll be HO scale, O scale, G,
there's usually a Lego layout
set. Yeah. And those Legos are something else to watch those guys run. And then we always have one of our best layout designs, and most of the time it's our top size T-track. So, and it's one of those events where it is more of an ambassador event where we're really trying to promote the hobby. In years past, we've had up to 9,000 people attend this event in 2 days. So, and it's not, nothing for sale, nothing, no parts swaps or trades or clinics or anything like that. This is a pure love of watching trains and the idea of, hey, here's all these different scales to get into it. Plus, the Science Center is known around U.S. and around the world as having one of the greatest O scale layouts that is set up all year round, and they have their own layout. So they have their own O scale layout that people go and take a look at. It's huge. It's very nice. And then you can come up and see Locomotion Weekend with all of us at the Iron City. The other thing we want to say about the Locomotion Weekend, it's always a great time. If it's your first time ever, this is the show to go to. You come up to us, hey, I'm an Iron City member, introduce yourself. We'll get you a throttle and you'll be running trains. So don't worry about not having a T-track module. Don't worry about if you've only purchased your first train, you haven't set it up yet. Come see us. We'll talk to you. We'll show you how it is. We'll let you run a train. Once you get that throttle in your hand, you'll be an N-scaler for life. And you and you're instantly you've paid all your dues to the Iron City because we don't have any dues. so if you can get through that, you're good to go.
You've met all the standards for entry into the club at that point, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Brad, what do you have today?
Well, I wanted to just say a couple more words about the Science Center.
Okay.
One other thing is there's the one side of the room that you're set up in that you mentioned is all glass and it overlooks the Ohio River, and you can look across the river and see two very busy real railroad main line, CSX and Norfolk Southern, both run over on the south side. So
That's
you can
right.
see the model train layout set up and you can see real trains. And the other thing that always bears mentioning that's always a big hit at this, if you have young children, Kevin, our layout manager, almost always, and I would bet, I haven't seen I don't know if I've looked at his layout plan, but he usually tries to have a junior engineers loop where the young kids who is one of the big reasons why we like to do this, just to see the look on those kids' face. But he provides a place for them to just run trains on our layout too. So that's another highlight of the weekend. But it's always a good time, and we hope to see as many of our listeners and Facebook page members and some new friends too, who maybe we haven't met yet. As many people as we can get in there. We always like to have the crowds come in and enjoy what we're doing there. So yeah, Common Science Center?
Cayman Science Center. Yep.
Cayman Science Center Locomotion Weekend. That's always one of the big dates on our calendar. So let's get some crowds out to support that. And it's actually looking like the weather might be halfway decent for us. I drove home in a snowstorm last year, so hoping not to have to do that again. But yeah. So yeah, that's a good one. And while we're on the topic of shows, Pat, my part of the Roundhouse Report, I saw one of our young guns on January 4th was at Monroeville, and he was kind enough to set up a tower cam for us on the N-track. The train N-track group had their N-track layout. Looked like a really nice layout set up there, and Blake provided a tower cam view of the yard. It looks like a pretty good sized yard. And for about a period of almost 25 minutes, Blake had that set up, and we were able to watch some of the trains running there live on the 4th, which would have been I guess Sunday, right? January 4th. So yeah. Thanks to Blake George for doing that, and looking forward to seeing Blake hopefully at the Science Center. So that was mine for this Roundhouse Report, Pat.
Okay, Brad. So I think I tell you what, been wanting to have a DJ on for a while now, and I'm glad we were able to get him. I think everyone is going to enjoy this interview. We get into pretty good detail, Brad, I think, and I think everyone's going to enjoy his ideas behind model railroading and his joy of model railroading. I think this comes out in this interview. So we will
not only well known, but just one of the truly good guys in the hobby. So it's a pleasure to have him here.
And one of the first people Brad and I met and we'll talk about that in the interview too. So one of the first guys we met as we were building the Iron City. So we will be back right after this with Brad, myself, and DJ from DJ's Trains. Hey, and welcome back. Brad, like we talked about earlier, this is season 2, episode 1, and we have a very special guest this evening that you and I met way back when we first started working on Iron City, way back. I believe this is Monroeville in 2021, and it's DJ from DJ's Train. So I'm going to pass over to Brad, let him introduce you, and we'll get started.
Yeah, as Pat said, we've got DJ here, a guy who has been just a really awesome friend to the Iron City group and now by extension to the Iron City Roundhouse Report. We just thought it was important to get him on here and to catch up with DJ. Like Pat mentioned, like right from the very beginning of Iron City, we're just months in when Pat and I met in person for the first time at that Monroeville Greenberg show back in, I can't even remember. Was it June or May? Or might have even been in July of 2021. It was the summer of 2021, I guess. That's when Pat and I first met. And then shortly after that, we met DJ for the first time, having seen some of his videos on YouTube. So if you haven't checked out DJ's Trains YouTube channel, make sure to get over there and see. He's got all kind of interesting stuff. He's also a very accomplished scratch builder. I've got a pretty good story about one of DJ's buildings that we'll probably try to work in here at some point. It's a very well-traveled building. I don't even know if DJ knows the full extent of that, but yeah, it's great to have you here, DJ. So welcome to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, and it's great to have you here for episode 1 of season 2. So welcome.
I'm really, really excited when you guys reached out. I'm like, heck yeah, and then like this is my first time doing a podcast, so
awesome.
I know, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's weird having headphones on because you hear yourself differently. And, it takes me back. I'll tell you a true story. Is I got a little bit of a cold, so if you hear a little sinus, like how he doesn't sound like he does on his videos. But so way back in the day, I went to college at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. I wanted to make videos for MTV. And I ended up taking some radio classes, and I'm like, okay, that's how I actually became a disc jockey. And people are like, did you like it? I'm like, no, because when you have headphones on and you're staring at a screen or staring at a wall or something, it's so different than interacting with people. But this is the first time I've heard myself with headphones on like this since the early '90s of my DJ days. So this is cool for me.
Oh, this is awesome. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, Brad and I, when we started our podcast last year, we'd always say, man, I don't know how that sounded. That didn't sound very good on our end. And you'd go back and after you did the editing and everything, it's like, oh, that actually ended up being a show. Okay. Yeah. But DJ, I know we have so much stuff to talk about this evening, but I thought we would, to tickle everyone's fancy, we'll go modeling first, then to your YouTube and all your channels and stuff. Then I want to go into drones a little bit with you and talk about how you select that stuff. Then we'll go into your model building. If we have any time left, we'll talk about some future plans. So let me circle back around. So DJ, how did you get into model railroading? What started all of this?
Okay, it's funny. I grew up in Penn Hills. My dad was an accomplished model builder with model airplanes, and I look back in hindsight, like I remember him taking me to these conventions, but for we have for the N scale, for the train shows, except his was for model airplanes.
Oh,
and
wow.
He had every now and then guys would come over the house, and I remember that as a very young kid, and he did weathering and he would make dioramas and he was really good and he would win awards, and he didn't teach me anything. That's a true story. People are like, hey, this must be your dad. I'm like, no, my dad wouldn't even let me stir paint. He was accomplished with an airbrush. I don't know how to airbrush, but I loved trains and he loved the airplanes. And we had this 4x8 piece of plywood that we put up every Christmas. And it was just HO, the Athletic Blue box. And, it was like I looked forward to that all year round, was setting that up. And then, so I had a little bit of HO back then. My dad ended up dying when I was like 17. So, he didn't teach me really anything about the modeling, but I first started with the HO, just like a little, like little layout in the garage, we had. And then I went off to, I grew up, went off to college and, became a disc jockey and all that stuff. And I kind of put the trains on hold for like a long period of time. And then I got hired with CSX Railroad as a conductor. And I had a girlfriend who later became, my first wife. And we had this apartment in Pitcairn. And I wanted to get back into the model trains. But I knew, okay, we're this little apartment. Let me try N scale. And so I got a 4 foot by 4 foot piece of plywood, and we just set up on a card table. And I think I bought like Bachman Easy Track, and it's just like a couple switches and some curves. And I just, for like 2 months, I just kept trying trying to squeeze what kind of track plan can I put on, this 4 foot by 4 foot piece of plywood. And I'll never forget, she says to me after 2 months of just track planning, she's like, is this ever going to turn into anything? And because there was no scenery. And I'm like, oh yeah, so eventually I started learning scenery and, making the buildings. And that really started, I would say, of mid 1999 is whenever I first started doing the N scale. And then eventually, you know, we got a bigger place and the layouts, kept growing, and I tried scratch building and all that stuff, and it kind of took off from there. But once I discovered, N scale, I never looked back, and I mean, my eyes tell me to switch to O scale or even G scale, but I'm gonna stick it out with N scale for as long as I can.
It's so funny. There's a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say, DJ, with your dad doing the model airplane and the airbrushing and everything, did that give you your kind of sense of attention to detail? Because I see your modeling, and it seems like there's a lot of attention to detail on a lot of things. Did that help to see him working on those small pieces?
Well, what's funny is I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and he took me to a convention. Like we used to go to Columbus and Youngstown and Cincinnati and most of the big cities in Ohio for all these conventions. And I remember seeing these dioramas. Well, I'm a kid, and I'm like, whoa, something must have broke on this airplane because it looks all damaged. And here it was a crashed airplane diorama, and it was supposed to look like that, and I thought it was supposed to look like new in the box. Just looking back at hindsight, as like, yeah, my dad really focused on telling the story of, hey, this was a World War II plane crash, and here's the scene, and here's the wreckage with it. And I guess subconsciously, I've always liked the storytelling of the dioramas, and you could do a lot, with N scale with making a good diorama. So.
That's fascinating. The two points that came out of that for me. First of all, I had a similar experience in N scale. It just seems like once you get used to that scale, and I call it, I don't even know if this is the right term, but the scenery to trains ratio.
Yeah.
Modeling like the Appalachian mountain areas that I like to model, you need some pretty good sized mountains, and it's, to me, a lot easier to achieve that in N scale than it is in some of the larger scales. As you mentioned, is a little tougher on the eyes as our age advances. You need magnifying lenses and stuff. And it was also my wife who pushed me to start building my layout. We had gotten married in 2012 and had consolidated 2 households into one. So the addition that we built on, where my training room is now, was filled with all the extra stuff we had. And she at one point said, you need to get building on a layout. You got all these trains sitting around in boxes. You need somewhere to display them. She was right. So I did just a few years before that date at Monroeville Pat and I were telling you about is when I started building the PRR North Penn. The other The other parallel that struck me is our Iron City historian, Richard Shirey. His father, like yours, was also into RC airplanes, remote control planes. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So DJ, I want to make sure everyone knows the whole gamut of what you do. So we'll come back to the model railroading here in just a second, because your YouTube channel is something else. And I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about that, how we can find your channel, what's your idea behind your channel, and how did you get into that? Because it's kind of a hobby within the hobby.
Okay, so I became a disc jockey, and when I left like the radio and I started doing more weddings and clubs, especially the weddings, I was able to make people laugh, and I really like enjoyed that. And I became one of the most popular wedding DJs in Pittsburgh. Did about 500 weddings, and it was because I just liked that interaction, and I loved. I'll never be a stand-up comedian because I laugh at my own jokes. So I have terrible delivery. Okay, but when I was able to, get up in front of a crowd and interact and make them laugh, make them smile, and I love that. And so, fast forward to, I'm trying to think when it was, around the 20 teens or something. I I, I always had a video camera, and so I started making short comedy movies. And I became an extra in a lot of movies filmed in Pittsburgh. You know, I got like 1 second, 2 second, 3 seconds of screen time. But it was really interesting because I got to see how movies were made, and all the little tricks and stuff like that. And I really liked that. And I started making all these short comedy movies on a separate channel. And then at the same time, I was scratch building a lot of stuff and selling it on eBay. And one of the first things that I go to sell on eBay that was for N scale was the Edgar Thompson, the basic oxygen furnace. And I thought, okay, so instead of just showing pictures on eBay, let me make like a quick video. And I had that. And then I also was selling that Amtrak set. And so I was like, okay, avocado Amtrak set. And instead of just photos, let me show a quick video of how well it runs. And it's my screen. Okay. So I started making, videos for eBay, and people, Steve, McCowan, he actually was the one that bought the basic oxygen furnace. That's how we became friends. But people started commenting on the eBay, like, this, your N-scale stuff is really cool. And I had to hurry up and make a quick YouTube channel. And so I was like, I don't want this one on the same channel as my short comedy movies. So I just, okay, like this is just gonna be for DJ's trains. And that's actually my first videos were just to sell stuff on eBay. And yeah, it's organic. I didn't have this big master plan. But then here's where things got interesting. Then I was like, okay, I think my third video or whatever was, hey, here's how to, scratch build, take that Kato truss bridge apart, and you can flip it and you can actually make it a cool road bridge. Okay. And here's some other things you can do. And you could take one kit and make 4 houses out of this. And so all that was coming along. And then I'm like, you know what? If I want to make videos, I want to make people laugh. And so I started, like, you'll see, like in the early videos, I always had my cats in the video. Because my cats are funny as heck, So you'll see that in some of the videos, and then you see like my daughter, and that's always my favorite thing to talk about, is my kid. And so she started showing up, and then I started putting like comedy. My comedy doesn't go over as well as I would like, but it was still my outlet because I stopped making the short comedy movies, but I really liked entertaining. And so then I started using the green screen, and things just kind of grew from there. Then I had a company reach out from Israel, and they were augmented reality, and they said, we want to see what you can do with our product. And so you'll see some of my videos, I think it was around 2020, 2021, where I was using augmented reality, and that was really neat. And then a long time ago, like 20 plus years ago, whatever, I had joined Big Brother, Big Sister. And my little brother, we actually just went to go see him a few months ago. He's married and has kids and stuff. We're still friends decades later. But he came over my house a handful years ago with his drone. And I had no idea like anything about drones until he showed me. And then the light bulb went off. And I'm like, I don't have to trespass anymore. I could totally see, like, if you guys know Pittsburgh and the Bessemer Lake Erie, I was the kid that always rode his bike up to North Bessemer and got chased by the police. And now I got a drone, and I was one of the first places like, oh, I get to see all the areas that I couldn't see before. And so that's how the channel actually grew, from making a couple videos for eBay to just teaching some generic like scratch building techniques to then I started talking about how the railroad actually works, because that was actually, I think, like 2 years of making videos before I even told people, hey, I'm an engineer for CSX Railroad. And then I'm like, well, you know what? I like teaching. Let me tell them, hey, this is how it really is. Here's some of the rules. Here's what it really is like to be an employee, or how the tracks are laid out, or why the trains are built the way they are. And that's why my channel is it's a combination of the miniature railroad, life as an engineer, taking the real world and transforming it into a miniature world that you want to live in. That's kind of like where I want to go with this. So I know it's a pretty long answer. I think I saw.
That's what we
our motto.
Long answers to short questions. And I think this is a good place to segue that story. And I was mentioning, because DJ mentioned Steve McCune. There was at one point when I was acquiring buildings and rolling stock, Steve and I did a lot of horse trading. There was a pipeline, we called it, between Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania and Plano, Texas. But one of the things that I bought for him, I want to eventually have a steel mill scene on my layout, and I bought a bunch of, I know he still has, I think he probably still has the oxygen furnace that you sold him, but he sold me another one and some other buildings, some rolling mills, one of which you built. It was a really nice scratch built rolling mill of a mill right down there at JET. And so I had it here and was getting ready, and Steve, I think, regretted selling it. So he would keep saying, hey, man, is there any chance of you? And he asked me to. I'm like, well, I really like that building. But anyway, it eventually got to the point where I had more rolling mills than I needed, and I needed to acquire some tank cars. So we worked out a trade. And so that building you built went from you to Steve. Then it went from Steve in Plano through the mail up here to me in central Pennsylvania, and then ended up back at Steve. And I don't think anybody's going to pry it out of his fingers again. But at one point, I would go to the post office here. That's funny. And he would see the address. He goes, boy, I see that a lot in here. And it was Steve's address. I said, yeah, it's probably all me, because I sent a lot of stuff to Steve. But it was just really awesome. I don't know if you remember that rolling mill you made, but it's really weathered nicely, and it had, like, just like the prototype does, it had some of the the walls, the metal walls on the bottom were kind of bent and dinged up, and you just captured the look of that beautifully. And Steve still has that on his layout to this day, even though it spent, I don't know, probably 9 months or a year up here with me. But it was funny. When we finally worked that deal, Steve gave me all kind of detailed instructions to make sure you pack that. But yeah, that was, I didn't know if you had heard about any of that, because Steve, I guess, was thinking about going another route with his layout instead of having all the steel mill buildings. But then he quickly regretted that. So that building, that one that you made its way back to him.
That's really funny. I know. It's funny because him and I have done this so often throughout the years, is we've sold the same stuff to each other, that we usually just keep the box
Because it fits if it has to go back, right? Yeah.
I tell you, DJ, some things on your channel that helps, I think, modelers a lot of times is like, I remember one video you were like, hey, don't ever underestimate what comes down the line on what we're pulling. And I remember I was like, oh, okay. And you're just watching, it looks like a mundane, normal freight train. All of a sudden, it's got passenger cars connected to the rear end, and I'm like, only you have, your channel allows people to see unique things on the railroad, things you wouldn't think about. And my follow up question to that is, now that you have the drones up and you're running everything, how, in your mind, how do you pick out the locations that you want to video? Is it from personal experience, or is it something you think, hey, this would catch a good in scale diorama, or are you thinking modeling, or are you thinking real life, or how do you put that together when you're targeting different videos and different places to see things?
That's a great question. When I first got the drone, it was everything I wanted to see since I was a kid.
Okay.
And, you know me, I've always loved the Union Railroad. So one of my first videos, which is trash, okay? One of the first videos that I did with the drone, I just showed my wife this. I labeled it the greatest video ever made. Okay, it's very tongue in cheek. I don't take myself seriously. Yeah, I start off the beginning of the video as Clark Kent and I turn into Superman, and then I fly over, and then I narrate it, and very tongue in cheek as I'm flying over the steel mill and I'm explaining, what you see there, and then I go up and I got to fly over in Monroeville over the engine house and the roundhouse and turntable and all that stuff that I have wanted to see since I was 11 years old on a bicycle. Now I get to see it up close, and then I drove up to North Bessemer and I got to do that. So I would say the first year was, this is for me,
Right,
and all the stuff that I wanted to see, and then it kind of grew from there. I always, when I talk to people, I have like 4 or 5, like over 400 videos. And I do sincerely, mean it when I say, give me some ideas. Like, what do you guys want to see? Because I feel like I filmed every inch of railroad in Western Pennsylvania, if anything. So, I try to take, people always ask me for a paper mill. And there's really nothing in Western PA that I know of. That's the one thing that I haven't filmed. There are some areas that, like, I would always want to go up and get the Irvin Works, but it's right next to Allegheny County Airport. And so you just can't. You're not going to get within 5 miles of an airport. So there's some things that I just say, I just can't do no matter how low I fly. So yeah, I love showing people the rivers of Western Pennsylvania and how so much, like, unless you have a boat, you're not going to see a lot of the railroads and the industries from that angle. But now with the drone, you do. And so I get really excited, to go over the Monongahela River and film the Clairton Works or film the Duquesne Works, or, just there's so much rail to river and river to rail that, last summer I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that this was over here. I spent a lot of time, maybe too much time, on Google Maps, just trying to find some interesting things to film. I take the drone with me pretty much every time the weather's good, because you just never know when I'm going to be driving. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is interesting. I have gone into Ohio, and I was actually really disappointed. I went down to West Virginia a couple months back, and I was hoping to get something good from like Wheeling or Weirton. I was surprised at how much is actually gone. But yeah, I'll take the drone. We went on our honeymoon. I don't take the drone onto airplanes because of the batteries and things like that. It's just not worth it. But if I can drive, I'll take the drone. Anywhere that I can drive, I'll take the drone. But yeah, it's just trying to find something that I would say, would help people with their layout. I think last year when I went up to Butler, because I saw on Google Maps, oh, here's a really interesting industry where it's like three industries and even a diamond. I'm like, this would be cool to model. And so I filmed that. So yeah, it's just a combination of what I want to see, what I think would help people, for their layouts, and just showing angles that you're not going to see from the road.
That's very cool. I did see too, one of your more recent videos is of one of my favorite railroads in the entire world, the Reading and Northern. And Pat, this will interest you. I don't know if this was on your way home or on your way out there, that you stopped in Danville and filmed. Pat, if you remember when we were rail fanning up in this area, we crossed the Susquehanna River, and there's a little train station on the other side that's now the Shade Mountain Winery. And DJ actually filmed that across the river from the city of Danville. Yeah, it's on his Reading and Northern video. But that's always been one of my favorite railroads. So I thought that was really cool, DJ, that you got down there, and I saw you had a good shot of their 1776 locomotive, and so very nice work there.
Yeah, but wait, here's what's funny, and the people that that are listening, that are familiar with my channel, they do know that I'm a Pittsburgher, and so we pronounce some things differently. And I was never out in Eastern Pennsylvania. I was driving to New York. If you saw the previous video where I had met up with my friend Farjan, who came into the United States, and that's the second half of that video previous.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, I stopped up in the area that you were talking about to film the Reading with Nathan, and I've never heard anyone pronounce, and I'm going to still screw it up. Schuylkill? Is that how you pronounce it?
That's pretty good. Yeah, Schuylkill. Yeah, I've heard it butchered a lot worse than that, DJ.
Okay, well, I must have butchered it on the video.
Okay.
There's like 500 comments, and like 499 are people telling me that I pronounced it wrong.
You said it wrong. Yeah.
Like, they won't let me live this down, Yeah. It's like,
there's
here. Yeah.
There's a major thoroughfare through the city of Philadelphia called the Schuylkill Expressway. We call it the Shorekill Expressway. There's a lot of wrecks on it, but yeah. No, that was pretty close to my ear. Now I'm not from down in that area either, so I might not say it right either, DJ. So I don't know.
But if they know North Versailles, we pronounce it Versailles and not Versailles.
Yeah, right.
The one that I would always get in trouble for out there is I would say Latrobe. You don't say that to somebody who lives there. It's got to be Latrobe. But yeah.
So, DJ, let's spin it back to your modeling, because that's another great thing that you do, and I've seen you at several shows. And you're so friendly to everybody, and your table normally sells out if it's a Saturday, Sunday show. Your table's probably gone by noon on Saturday. Tell us a little bit about what you like to model. What do you like to bring to the market? I know I've got several of your items myself, especially steel mill specialty things, but I know you've done the strip district. I know you've done different things. Just tell us a little bit about your modeling experience, what you like to build, what do you like to bring to market, and a little bit about what you do when you do sell things.
Okay, that's a great question. Number one, people don't believe this, but I really don't have an imagination. I'm not, and I'm not an artist. And people are like, "Oh, yeah, you're an artist." I'm like, "No, I'm a duplicator." Okay, I'm a Xerox. What I can do is I can look at a picture. So the other night I had my Union Railroad in color book, and I had it open, and I was looking at one picture of all the gondolas, and it was at a good angle, and I'm seeing all the way the inside of gondolas rust, and it's all different colors. And so I have my acrylic paints, and I'm mixing the paints, like, okay, wait, this is too orange, this is too red, this is too yellow, and I'll just keep doing it, mixing that color until I just hold it up next to the book. I'm like, okay, that's the right color. And okay, and it streaks this way or it rusts this way. I'm like, oh, okay, there's actually, this and that. I have a video called how to how to weather a blast furnace or something, or how to paint a blast furnace. And when you see it, it's like I used purple, and people are like, "Dude, why are you using purple?" Like, because if you look at photos, the way a lot of things rust is purple, and but I think that's what confuses people is people just assume, hey, I'm supposed to weather something. Let me just take brown and it looks like it ran through the mud. Okay, that's where I kind of get frustrated with that is I tell people look at the photos because your eyes and your memory and your imagination may deceive you. If you want something realistic, look at a photo and then just try to duplicate. That's really where my strength lies and that. So I build things based upon photos. I like scratch building. I like. I also tell people when you're scratch building, don't try to be exact. Okay, hey, this building has 10 windows. Okay, well, you know what? After about making 6 windows, you're tired of making windows. People are still going to recognize that building. Go by with what I call good enough. So a lot of my scratch building really is just that. It's from photos. It's making it good enough. I also say forget scale because like my riverfront, I used G scale for like corrugated siding in G scale. I use HO scale brick because you can see it better and your eyes tell you that's right. And it's like, even though to scale, you wouldn't be able to see N scale brick, when you use HO, your eyes will tell you that it looks right. Other things with scratch building is like, I don't know. I just try to make what I would want to see on my layout. And that's usually what happens is beginning of the year, I make stuff for my layout, which I made all of Neville Island, like the cool buildings of Neville Island earlier in the year. And then by the time summer came around, into the fall, I'm like, I've totally changed my whole layout completely. And now all these buildings are for sale.
Right.
So I feel bad. There's a gentleman and his son, and they come to the train shows. I feel bad because I don't know their names, and I they're two of the nicest people you'd ever meet, and they come to the show, and they're such big fans of mine that they get there when the doors open, and they do try to buy my higher price items right off the bat, and I can't tell them no. So yeah, my table can sell out in the first hour sometimes. And it's funny because then like Saturday night, I'll come back to the house and I'm hurry up and finding things that, okay, maybe I don't need this on the layout because I need stuff to sell on Sunday. So, or you'll see me up all night, like hurry up and scratch building something to sell on Sunday. So I'm only doing the N scale shows, the Altoona one. It's like, these are my people, the N scale guys. But yeah, periodically, I'll pop in at a Monroeville, like the Greenberg show, just more for the social to see you guys. So
yeah, DJ, tell us a little bit about. We talked a little about your modeling. You told us about your pictures and the eye for everything. What are some skill sets that you like to bring to like? Are you more of a chalk guy, or are you more of a paints guy? Acrylics? What's your techniques to do some of this weathering and painting on your buildings and everything?
Okay, so number one, I don't airbrush. I actually bought an airbrush maybe 15 years ago, and the air compressor. I'm not patient. When I started doing the YouTube, I'm like, maybe I should change it to the impatient modeler because that's really what I would consider myself as the impatient modeler. And I think when I first got the airbrush, it's like I didn't know that you had to like hurry up and clean it, or else the paints are going to get hardened. And yeah, within like 2 days, I'm like, yeah, airbrushing isn't my thing. So I always use acrylic paints, and that's what I tell people is go to Walmart, Michael's. I'm trying to think where else. Like, you could get those acrylic paints for like 50 cents, $1 max, and start with white. And just, I always start with white, and then I add, the color to the white. And there was a guy on YouTube. His name was Modeler Man Mike. And he was the one that I learned the technique of using that cosmetic triangle, those little cosmetic sponges. I forget which building he did, but it was great. And so that's how I learned the technique of painting with the little cosmetic sponges as opposed to a brush, because you won't get the brush streaks. And that cosmetic sponge is awesome for any raised detail, especially like with brickwork. And the nice thing about acrylic is, you paint it with this acrylic, you're like, man, this looks terrible. You don't have to strip it. You just go over it and you just keep doing it. Like you could have, multiple layers of different attempts on that same building. It's like a gobstopper, it's like there's just layer upon layer upon layer until you get it right. So
I like the acrylics a lot too, DJ. And I've found that if you don't like something, I've even brushed like 71% isopropyl alcohol on it, and it thins it right down, and you can start over again, and it just doesn't build up quick and get a real thick layer of paint like some other kind of paints do. So, but yeah, I feel the same way.
Yep. So I don't use the chalks anymore. I think I originally tried chalks. I think when you use the chalks, like I was using chalks and then I was using dull coat over top of it, and I just didn't have the best results. Also, that dull coat, unless you're spraying outside, like the smell of that can really like make me sick. So
you have to be ventilated when you're doing that dull coat spray. So DJ, something Brad's even faster than me. I am pathetically slow building my layout. Brad and I are both building layouts at the same time. Brad's is 5 times bigger than mine. He's got another phase done. I'm still stuck on one corner of the layout for details. You and Steve have this ability, our friend down in Texas, to build layouts, to tear them down and rebuild them and put them up again. Tell us a little bit about how many different layouts you've built. I know you just gave one away. Tell us about that, and what maybe future projects that you would maybe have in plan for layouts.
Well, anyone that knows me knows I don't have any emotional attachment to a physical object. I only have attachment to living things. So, I know people are like, oh, I'd never want to part with that or part with this or whatever. Like, dude, it's just stuff. It's just stuff. And like, you took down your layout, like you threw out this. I'm like, it's just stuff. And so I think that's what kind of separates me from other people, is that it's like I have no problem tearing something down, starting over. I look at it this way. I always used to build puzzles. And so let's just say you have a 300-piece puzzle. Well, I enjoy building that puzzle and seeing where the piece is going to go and watching it come together and the progress. Throughout my life, I've had a lot of periods of depression. People don't know that. I've had a lot of periods of depression. And the best way to get out of depression is to make progress. And I tell people, if you go through depression, find something that you can make progress in, even if it is a puzzle, because it gives you something to wake up and do. And so it's not having a finished puzzle that makes you happy. It's the progress along the line that keeps you motivated, keeps you going. And so I don't look at a layout as I need to have a finished layout, because you can go out and buy one. You could just go on eBay and Marketplace and buy a finished layout. That's not going to make you happy. It's the progress of coming down, like, hey, I got the bench work done. Okay, you feel good and you get excited. And then you start, the track work, and it's that progress. And I don't feel like satisfied that I have a finished layout. It's not about the destination, it's the journey. It's the building for me. So yeah, I've taken down or destroyed layouts halfway through because I get a new inspiration. I flew the drone over here and now I want to model that. So Yeah, that's why I think honestly, no exaggeration, I'm probably about my 40th layout since 1999. I've moved a handful of times, so that played a
Right.
big factor into things. And there's some things I don't get better at. And one is track laying with Atlas Flex Track. Man, I don't get better at soldering. And so, but each time I keep telling myself, okay, I'm going to make, this layout. I'm going to use Atlas Flex Track. It's going to be so realistic. And I'm going to have these nice curves and all that stuff. And then like 2 months into it, it's like everything's derailing on that same curve. And then I rip it up and I go back to good old reliable Kato unit track because you never let me down.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and I love that you guys use the unit track on the modules. I think anyone getting involved with N scale, once you go unitrack, you don't go back.
Right. Right.
Well, I've seen some really, really nice layouts too with other types of track, but those are usually made by very experienced modelers who somehow derive a lot of satisfaction. And I've heard some guys say that it's relaxing for them to lay that track work and then have to come back with all the value. It just isn't for me. And
Yeah.
I lose interest. I've started layouts with flex track and stuff, and then life intervenes, and it's hard to convince yourself to get back down there to work on a layout that no trains are going to be running on for a year if you're building a big layout. That was the nice thing. I even use it on my home layout because it's like Pat said, I can get a section done and, it's not completed all the way, but I can put a balloon return loop on it and I can run trains. And, it's satisfying to rough in some scenery and have some scenery and then watch your trains run through it. And that's helped keep my interest. I started this layout back in 2018, the summer of 2018, and I've been able to keep my interest peaked partially with that, but it's partially with all the people I've been able to meet, a lot of it was over COVID where we met a lot of people, and it was just coming out of COVID when we met you. But that helps too when you have friends, who you see them do something to their layout, and that makes you want to go do something to yours. But yeah, I agree. You can. A lot of people don't like the looks of Unitrack, which just by itself it does look kind of toyish, but you can add ballast to it, and I think make it look just as good, and it just runs so reliably. And you don't have to, you don't have all the joy of soldering, either soldering rail joints or soldering feeder wires to the bottom of your rails. To me, like I said, I know some people enjoy that, and more power to them, but that's just not one of my favorite parts of the hobby. So I on the modules and on my home layout, it's what and I know Pat does too. If you're looking to get into the hobby, it's a great way to get in.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
a scenery
For
guy.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a scenery guy, so this is true. I was thinking about just modeling a bike trail.
Pat, be careful. Pat loves ballasting. He loves it more than anything in the hobby.
I live for that. So, DJ, let's follow up with that one question though. We know you just gave away your last layout. What do you think your next your project is? What do you have plans for? What are you thinking for your next one?
So, I spent a lot of time on the internet, and then also meeting people, and just I think what I see people ask the most or comment the most is they say, I don't know what to model. Okay. Or if you look at a lot of layouts that people are unhappy with, it's like they're trying to do too much. Or they say, okay, so over here is New River Coal Mine, and 10 feet away is an icing plant, and a few feet away is, a lumber mill. And it's like, is that what you grew up looking at?
Right.
And they're like, no. And I said, is that what you see every day? And they're like, no. I said, where did you ride your bike to watch trains? Where did someone put you on their shoulders to wave at trains? Model that. That will always keep your interest. Is go back. Come on, we're kids. That's all we are. We're big kids. that like watching trains. I see it as an engineer every day, the parents to pull up their, the back window down, the little kid waving to me. I see it every day. And that kid is going to remember I used to watch the trains at this location. So even though I have tried numerous times to model layouts where it would just be based upon imagination, or maybe like a different area or something different, I always find myself going back to who I am, the kid that rode his bike down to Braddock to see Edgar Thompson, to see the mills, to see the gritty industrial railroad. And that's why I don't model the Midwest. That's not home to me. So what I started doing is I gave myself a clean palette. Now that I have more space in the furnace room, I gave away the door layout. It didn't lend itself to expand. And so I'm going to start over, but right now focusing on here's what I have with the freight cars. And I'm just going to start weathering, and I'm going to look at the pictures from, for me, it'll always be 1987. It's like the last good year of railroading before the mills all went down. And there's still just a lot of cool stuff. And I'm going to go back to that part of me that just loves the industrial mills and the river. If you grew up in Pittsburgh, you know what the river even smells like.
Right.
And so I'm going to find a way to incorporate all that stuff as who I was as a kid. And that's just the message I like to tell people is write down a list of all the things that inspired you as a kid into loving trains and model that, even if it's just a little diorama. So that's probably where you'll see my layout take shape in 2026.
That to me is such a great point and a great, I guess, philosophy of how to model something that's going to keep your interest. Go back to what interested you in the first place and model something that means something to you. An example for Pat and I, when Pat was still in the Army, he was stationed at Fort Indiantown Gap. It's about, 2.5 hours south of here. And there would be a lot of times where he was alone on the base on the weekends, sitting there, a lonely colonel by himself. And we would meet in the town of Northumberland, DJ, which is not far from Danville, where you took that video we were talking about. We would meet there at Front Street Station and have dinner, and Pat always wanted pie. They had a lot of different good pies for dessert. I had a really good friend and another very accomplished scratch builder named Scott Lister. He offered to build me a model of that Front Street Station in Northumberland where Pat and I used to meet. So that has become, because that means something to me. That's the area that I'm really working on hard now to make it look really nice, because that has become a focal point just because of the memories that Pat and I shared there, and the fact that Scott did such a nice job building this. I've really focused my energies on creating stuff that doesn't look out of place beside such an outstanding structure. So that's the part that I'm currently working on. And that kind of stuff that you mentioned that does have meaning for you, I just think that I never really thought of it that way until you said that. But it does inspire you to do a better job modeling and to keep going, and it keeps you from losing interest, because it's something that piqued your interest right from the beginning. So yeah, thanks for that point. That really hit home for me.
Yeah, and that's actually, I don't want to badmouth Walthers, because they've always been very nice to me. I've nothing, some of the people are really nice from Walthers, but they don't put out a lot of buildings in N scale or such a good variety. And I just see people getting into the hobby, and so many layouts look the same. And it's like, where are the mill buildings? Where are the smaller industries of Western Pennsylvania? Like, none of the Walthers catalog looks like what you and I see driving around. And that's where scratch building becomes necessary. So,
DJ, something Brad and I have been really talking about in our first season and brought up to some of the younger guys, and I was really surprised to hear their answer. Guys our age in our 40s and 50s, we're becoming kind of the leaders in the industry now, somewhat. You still have a lot of guys in their 70s and 80s.
Can I interject something there?
Yeah, yeah.
Guys our age are now more 50s and 60s than there are 40s and 50s.
Come on, man. Come on. Go the other way. Don't go that way. But what I'm seeing, DJ, is, and I know Brad and I definitely do, we love that, our friend Uncle Dave, his layout too, 80s, and you said it. You said the magic word there, 87. Mine's always my layout. I try to keep it within the 70s and 80s. Brad on our T track does that. I know he's modern on his regular, but he throws other stuff on there. I thought folks younger than us that would be as far back as they'd want to go. I was really surprised how many young people love Steam. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. And what we realized is from the shows when they were younger were very Steam oriented. And then you see so much Steam right now back on these real railroads of Strasburg, the Reading, Northern, different down in Virginia, Tennessee. Steam is really popular for a lot of rail fanning. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that, because when you said that magic word 87, I was like, oh, he's an 80s guy like me. But there's so many guys that are still doing Steam. What's your thoughts on that?
That's really interesting. But here's something that I've made note of is look at the past 20 years of Model Railroader magazine. The only time you see modern on the cover, it's from Pele. He's been on the cover of Model Railroader, I think like 15, 16 times, and he's always modeled to me, he's the greatest modeler of all time. His stuff is just phenomenal. But that's the only time you see modern on Model Railroader. Other than that, they focus on the transition era.
Right.
And so I kind of feel that has a big influence, that the transition era is what they're being exposed to through Model Railroader magazine. I did not grow up with Thomas nor Polar Express. That just wasn't, that didn't come out till we were, older.
Right.
So maybe those two things have a factor, and why these, the younger people gravitate towards Steam too. But yeah, it is interesting that I don't, I do see the younger guys, they either model, some modern, and they're detailing all these GEVOs, and they're all, making these great, layouts that they're running with their cell phones and stuff like that, which blows me away. That's where I feel like a total boomer, But yeah, it's like, I feel there's a whole, like, decades and decades that aren't being modeled enough, except for guys like you and I that really appreciate the 80s.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, I've been thinking about that too, Pat, since we did that episode, because it kind of blew me away too. I was not expecting that answer at all. But I think the other thing that they have now is there's so much, especially in N scale, and we do of course congregate with a lot of N scalers, Pat. When I was starting out in model railroading, to have a steam fleet that ran even half mediocre was next to impossible. But man, there's so many beautiful running, beautiful sounding, and just beautiful looking steam engines available today from the manufacturers. I would guess that that's probably driving some of those younger guys to that as well.
So DJ, as we wrap up tonight, we want to say thank you so much for being here, and what you do for the hobby and for the industry as a whole is just outstanding. I wanted to ask you one final question this evening, and it's more of just a generalization. Someone is new to the hobby and they're hearing this podcast for the first time. They're doing research and everything, and they want to look at your page. They want to look at what you do. What are some things that you would tell someone new into the hobby as they're about to dig deep into their first layout? What were some things you would tell them?
Okay. Don't rush. and don't start that basement empire. Uh, I can't stress that enough. Is I have seen this so many times that uh, maybe the kid goes off to college and you got that bedroom is free, and the wife says, "Do whatever you got to do," okay? And I'm gonna build my first layout, and it's triple deck, and I'm thinking, God, this ain't, you know, I I tell people start small. You will get more enjoyment out of a hollow core door by putting in, get your hollow core door, put down foam. You got to start with foam, because if you just go straight on plywood, there's nowhere to go but up. And railroads, you need drainage, and just look at the scenery around you. You need to have, more realistic scenery. So start on foam, and then, you could carve away at it. But watching a train going around on a loop of a hollow core door with scenery is going to be way more exciting than your second year of building just the plywood central. And that's where people end up giving up, is they never make it to the scenery part. And the scenery part is what's going to keep you interested, keep you motivated. So start small. Don't limit yourself. So allow yourself to have an interchange, that goes off the layout. On my channel, DJ's Trains, if you go to the homepage, you'll see it'll say playlist. And I spent a lot of time organizing my videos into different categories, from prototype operations to life as an engineer to layout design, track plans, and kind of find like one thing, like one playlist for you. I think that the track planning, to see how railroads really operate, and with the layout building, just so you don't get bored and don't try to tackle these giant things, because you'll never. We have friends that have spending decades and they're still in the plywoods, and with hardly any scenery, and they got this, just trains running on plywood. It's just not as much fun as going over someone's house and they got a small detailed layout. So yeah, I would say that'd probably be the best advice I'd give a new person.
That sounds great. Brad, anything you'd like to close out with before we say goodbye to DJ?
Well, just thank you very much for joining us, DJ. Like I mentioned earlier, you've always been a good friend to Iron City, even when Iron City was basically just Pat and I and maybe 6 or 7 other guys. You were always friendly to us at the shows, greeted us, and, pointed us in the right direction for where to find all the good deals and things like that. So we'll have to make sure we use that picture, Pat, though.
Oh, yes.
For the cover photo of this when we release it. Especially, we'll have to put a big circle around Tom photobombing us in the back. But yeah, thanks so much, DJ, for being a friend to Iron City for as long as you have, right from the beginning, and thanks for being on here with us. It was really great talking to you.
What's funny is, if you ask my wife, about the Iron City guys, she's like, yeah, you call them. She's like, oh, the good guys, the good guys in the hobby. The good guys. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember. So that's your nickname. That should be your new tagline.
Yeah, we like that. We like that.
Yeah, and DJ, hopefully we'll have you back soon on the show to talk, maybe follow up on that 2026 layout that you're starting on. Maybe we'll see some projects and be able to talk to you again really soon.
Sounds good, my friends.
Okay. All right, everybody. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everybody. Brad, what a great show. DJ knocked it out of the park. Totally enjoyed that interview. I learned so much from him. Basically, his grassroots about how he got started, and what he's doing now, and some of the future projects. And I think the best is yet to come for DJ in 26. And hopefully we'll be able to bring him back pretty soon, and maybe close out the year with another DJ interview. So What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, could not agree more. It's always fun talking to him. And, as we mentioned a couple times already, right from the very beginning, DJ reached out to us and has been from the very beginning of Iron City, has always been a very good friend of us. And he's given us some screen time on his YouTube channel, and just like I said in the intro, just a genuinely good guy and always has something interesting to say, and is a very, very good modeler too. So really, really glad to start the year off with somebody of his caliber. And like you said, hopefully more to come in the future with DJ.
So, Brad, we would always tell everybody you want to get a hold of Brad, myself, or even DJ that you heard today. He is a member. We try to make sure when we interview folks, for the most part, they're members of our Iron City page. So you can DM them right in personally on Messenger, or you can just do a post right on the Iron City Facebook group, and we'll make sure someone answers the question and gets back to you. That's one of the great things that we do.
Yeah, and
Here,
if you want to direct, a Facebook post on the page to somebody, you can always just tag. Like if you would like DJ to answer a question and you don't mind posting your question for everybody to see, just tag him or tag whoever you want to ask the question to, and you'll probably get answers from them, and you'll probably get answers from other people too. So
right.
um,
And we always have
so
a few people on the page, Brad, like Richard, Jimmy, a few others that if Brad and I can't answer the question immediately, someone from Iron City will answer it for you, or come back. It might be a day or two, but they will come back with pretty good answers. We had some stuff over the holidays. I was so impressed with our members. No one judged anybody or said, "Hey, that was a bad question." And someone even tested us. I can't remember the name, but they said, "Hey, you said on your podcast I can ask questions." And I swear that it must have been 12 responses, all good natured responses with really good information.
yeah,
You know, you see stuff, a lot of this stuff now comes back. You ask a question on the internet or Google or whatever, you're getting this AI return now. It's great to actually see real people answering the question to maybe
yeah.
more of a event driven or timely mannered question that kind of matches what you're asking in real time. So I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Brad,
the big one that turns me off too is when somebody takes the time to ask a question and somebody gets on and says Google is your friend, or Google.
right,
If
yeah,
I wanted to Google it, I would have Googled it. I'm trying to get an answer from somebody who knows more than I do.
right. And I always put, hey, this is what I do. Doesn't mean it's professionally,
Yeah.
blessed off on, but here's my technique. Or, hey, or I just text Brad, Kevin, and make you guys answer for me because I don't know the answer. Hey, Brad.
That's that tagging thing we were just
Right,
talking about,
right.
right?
Hey, Brad, if they want to listen to us, they can go to Apple Podcast, YouTube, Podbeam, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, Boomplay, and there's several more that I haven't listed that we're definitely on. So wherever you get your podcast, we're there. And tonight I'm going to give the final word to Brad. He wants to talk a little bit more about some of these different outlets that we have that we're using in 2026. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, the YouTube channel, we've got some plans for. In fact, one coming up very soon. In fact, it may have already dropped before this podcast drops. But the Podbean suite that we use to record the audio does extremely well for us in audio, but we can't do any video. So that's why we've included this YouTube component. And we do have there are some videos posted there. All of our audio podcasts are posted there, but we do have some plans to expand and do some videos, layout videos, some ops videos, and another big one that's coming up here in a couple weeks. Pat and I are going to be attending the big Amherst train show in Springfield. Excuse me, Springfield this January, just a couple weeks from now. And we'll be we'll definitely be doing some live videos from there, including Facebook live videos for those on the Facebook page. But we also might give it a try to do some YouTube videos live from up there. So we'll have to see how that works out. And we will be up there, and we'll probably try to post a general. We'll do a Facebook Live video maybe early in the morning or whenever, and let people know approximately where we are. Because if you've never been there, there's a lot of ground to cover up there. And
Yeah.
it is it's the largest model train show definitely in North America, maybe in the entire world. I don't know, but it's just something to see if you've never had the opportunity to get up there. It's hard to even describe it to someone who hasn't been there. So Pat and I will be there, and there will be some other of our close friends. Todd Treaster and Jim Young will be making the trip up. Chris Ketch and Tom Catalano will be up there. I believe Blake George is coming again. You know, he was there last year. Sorry if I forget somebody. Our good friends who have been on Yardmaster episodes, Scott Lister will be up there, and some of the guys who were on one of our, I think it was the Go Big or Go Home episode, Dave Abeleys, of course, will be up there. David Hyde, who was on that to Go Big or Go Home episode. Chris Adams will be joining us up there. So, and our buddy from UK, Peter Borchards, will be there. And then, of course, we can't forget about our good friend from down under, Marty Jenkins, and Andy Zimmerman, the NMRA guys that we had on one of our shows, two of our shows actually, will be up there. So a lot of our good friends that we enjoy talking to. We will get to put names to the voices now. I know, Pat, you've not met. I don't think you ever met. Did you ever meet Andy in person?
No, there's several people I haven't met yet. So Marty, Andy, Chris, and a few others. I can't wait to meet David.
David Hyde, yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to meet all these folks. Peter, I've never met. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen Peter in quite a while. I've chatted with him on Facebook, so I'm looking forward to seeing him over there. Getting it. He'll be at the same hotel we're staying in, and as well many of the other guys that I mentioned, Todd and Todd Treaster and Jim Young, will be in the hotel right across the street from us. So we'll be hanging out downtown. And I know Uncle Dave that's where he has stayed when he goes. So he knows a lot of the good spots to eat and hang out in the evenings. So he'll be our tour guide for that, hopefully, for at least one of the evenings. But yeah, looking forward to that. And as we said, we'll be up there in our Iron City attire with the Iron City either the Iron City Roundhouse Report t-shirts one day. And if we will probably be a little sweaty from walking around. So we might just have to have our black Iron City t-shirts on the next day, but we'll have our hats. So, if you see us and feel like talking to us, if you don't feel like talking to us, that's okay. But if you do, don't be afraid to come up and say hi. We would enjoy meeting people that have listened, but we haven't had the opportunity to see live yet. So that's very much looking forward to that, and very much looking forward to some new and exciting stuff that we got coming up for this podcast in 2026.
That, Brad, and I was told you always need to make a list when you go to the Big E of the different people you want to see. So I'm starting my list, and I'll have it ready.
If I were you, the way to do it is they have two different things you can download. One is an alphabetical list of vendors with a number, and then the other one is a map of they say 4 buildings, but it's really almost like 5 buildings because there's 2 buildings that are connected. It's either one really big building or 2 just big buildings. Yeah, it's you got to have a game plan or you'll be walking around with your head spinning all day. That's for sure.
Well, that's all the time we have tonight, Brad. You want to tell everyone good evening, and we'll see them soon.
Sure will. Thanks so once again for joining us for our new season premiere of season 2. So it's season 2, episode 1 of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to you joining us throughout this year on season 2. Everybody have a great day, and we'll be back soon. All right, rail fans, that's all the steam we've got for this edition of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Until next time, keep those gauges green, your couplers connected, and may your layouts always run smoothly. Happy railroading.